Hey everyone, we're going to be starting to record the Polite Society podcast here in just a few seconds. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. To my right, as he is most Monday nights, Rob Morse of the Slowfax blog and Self-Defense Gun Stories. And down on the bottom row there, although no specific reason other than that's just where he normally is, John Richardson of the Only Guns and Money blog. Gentlemen, it's just us three tonight. Thank you guys for taking time out of your evening to do the duties and get the show out tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's. Looks like both John and Rob have been busy in show notes, so I think we are ready to go ahead and kick the show off for as far as the recording part of it. As soon as I increase my browser font so these old eyes can see it more comfortably. I want to remind everybody who's watching on Facebook and YouTube, and I got to get those hooked up, by the way. If you're watching on the Polite Society podcast feed, on either Facebook or YouTube, you can comment on either of the live videos. We get those comments. We'll get them put up on the air. I have been having a bit of a problem with Facebook picking up the comments and getting it to my software, but as of right this exact instant, it's working. YouTube, go ahead and comment on the YouTube feed. I'll get your comments on the air. If you're watching on OpsLens or anywhere else that picks up the feed, go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag Polite Society. And that actually gets here faster than either of the other two do. So if you want your comment in guaranteed and you want it quick, hit me with hashtag Polite Society. We'll get your comment in. We'll discuss your comment on the air. Gentlemen, I think we're ready for Massad Ayoob. So let's do that in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Massad Ayoob from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, September the 12th, 2022. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we talk about another gun owner who stopped mass murder, this time in Detroit.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about an average violent weekend in Chicago. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 633 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. And it's Monday night at 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters, so it must be time for Polite Society podcast. As I usually do, Rob, I'm going to start with you. What's been up since the last time you've been on the air with us, man?
I was on Bill Frady's Lock and Load radio show. I recorded another episode of Self-Defense Gun Stories. Tony Simon joins me again in a couple days. I sent in my biography for the Gun Rights Policy Conference. That's coming up at the end of the month. I hope to see you all there. My wife and I went on vacation, and it's nice to be home and caring again. How about you, John?
Well, today is my first Monday as a retiree, and I kind of like it. Every Monday is now like Labor Day. I also retired 2 days before big reorganization was announced at my old company. People asked me, did you have any inkling of it? And the answer is no. It just happened. I'm glad to be gone. No offense. I enjoy the company, but I'm glad I'm retired. In gun news, I had a chance to shoot prototypes of Rob Pincus's PD-10 compact fire striker-fired pistol. He's working with Manor, who is literally 4 minutes from my house. Now, remember again, these were prototypes, but I think the production model will be a nice carry gun. This is a very, very slim pistol. And I too sent in my bio for GRPC's program. I'm not sure what I'm going to say in my talk, but I'm sure it will be profound as I roll my eyes.
It will
Paul?
be profound, John.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Paul, how about you?
I have not sent my bio in because I do not intend on speaking this year. I'm usually asked to speak. I specifically asked them not to ask me to speak this year. I've got way too much going on, and this is our first in-person GRPC in 3 years. We're upgrading technology in several places, and I really want to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. It's really hard to run a broadcast and, by the way, leave the computer and get up on stage and speak. And so I said, I appreciate you guys asking me, but please don't ask me because I don't want to have to tell you no. So I'm not, if you're going to GRPC during the break, if you happen to see me away from the computer, please come up and say hi. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk to you, but I'm not going to be speaking from the stage this year if I have anything to say about it. What's been going on with us? Well, we're hip deep in planning for AmCon, planning for the Gun Rights Policy Conference broadcast. I've had several calls, several conference calls, several planning sessions for both AmCon and for GRPC these past week and 2 weeks, honestly. And I got to tell you, the things are I'm starting to feel the anxiety. I'm starting to feel the energy build, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. It's been all-consuming, though. I haven't been out to shoot in a couple weeks, so I may have to this week. I have to make sure that I may have to take a couple hours out and actually go do some shooting. So, a personal note. 2 things I want to bring up on a personal note. We have had 2 rescue dogs for the past 8 years, and on Friday, while I was in here doing a conference call, the dogs wanted to be let out. I let them out into our gated yard, and apparently one of the neighbor kids thought it would be fun to let the dogs out so they could play with the dogs. One of the dogs took the opportunity and went wandering, and it's now been, as we speak, 3 days, 8 minutes since the last time, not that I'm counting, since the last time we seen our dog Dude. I'm hoping he's able to come home. We've looked everywhere, but 3 days a dog can go a long way. So I'm just that happened, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Susan and I were out yesterday, and yesterday, of course, would have been September 11th, and it was, thinking back 21 years ago, the weather in Sioux Falls, South Dakota yesterday was exactly the same as I remember the weather on September 11th, 2001. And it really brought that day back very, very big for both Susan and I as we were out looking for our dog, but we had a long discussion about that, about how much it's still 21 years later, and it feels like day before yesterday. And so anyway, those are the 2 personal things I wanted to bring up today. Before we take off to our first break, let's go ahead and do this. I want to talk to you about Self-Defense Radio Network. That's at sdrn.us. As you can see right there on your screen, all your Pro Freedom podcasts in one place. You can see that we're up there. Some guy, Rob Morse, does this Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. That's up there as well. Armed Lutheran Radio's up there. Riding Shotgun with Charlie's up there. Of course, Amanda Suffolk Eye on the Target Radio is there. not only can you listen right off the website, there's also the subscribe information. So if you want to subscribe to any of those podcasts, you can subscribe to them as well. Go check it out at sdrn.us. Right now, we are going to step aside to break. We're going to catch our first one. We're going to hear from ACLDN, and we'll be right back with the news right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Massad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
And welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I want to, we got comments coming in. Mike White, speaking of my dog, wants to know if he's microchipped. Yes, he's microchipped. Both our dogs and both our cats are microchipped. So, it's relatively inexpensive, and it's the best chance you have of getting a runaway pet back. But it doesn't mean it's a definite. So, yeah, and Dana wanted to know if he should increase the font on the show notes to. Dana is our writer, by the way. Wants to know if he should increase the font size to 20 point. Well, I can increase everything on my side, dude, without ruining it for everybody else. Anyway, let me go scroll down in here. Rob, you want to go to our first news story?
Sure. Gun Control Chicago had 25 people shot and wounded over this last weekend alone. The sad news is that there's an additional 5 people who were shot and killed. As shocking as that sounds, that's a normally horrible weekend in Chicago these days. During the summer, we add about 100 people a week, 400 people a month who are shot. The total is now over 2,500 people shot this year by the drug gangs in Lori Lightfoot's Chicago. We have to ask, how is that gun control working out for you?
Yeah, and the sad part is it doesn't even make news in Chicago. You've got to really go digging for those numbers to find them.
You're absolutely, yeah.
Put another way, it's a huge mass murderer every weekend in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems like the only way that it's going to make the news is if, God forbid, a little kid is hurt, multiple people are shot at a wedding, at a bar mitzvah, or whatever, at a party.
Funeral.
That's the only thing that makes the news. Funeral. Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And admittedly, Sioux Falls and Chicago are 2 entirely different cities, entirely different sizes of cities. We've got a little over 200,000 people here in Sioux Falls. There are tiny neighborhoods in Chicago that have a lot more people than that. But we had the first murder of the year a few weeks ago here in Sioux Falls. I don't think there are any neighborhoods in Chicago that haven't had several murders this year. So, I don't know.
Nor does Sioux Falls have a media who is trying to hide the failed political decisions made by those governing Chicago. Paul, there's a reason they don't cover this news. If they did, one, the mayor might have all their cars towed. They might have unexpected holes dug in front of where they work and where they live. If people wanted socialism, go to Chicago. If you need anything done, you need political permission before you can so much as breathe. And this is the result, a failed city in America.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add, even in my city, which is about half the size of Paul's, Sioux Falls, we've had 11 people murdered this year. And we do have one of those lefty city councils that wanted, there's a big number of trying to defund the police. We've had 80 to 100 police officers resign since the beginning of 2020. Certain crimes are not even responded to anymore. So, yeah, it's no wonder that crime is up when you have politicians like that, whether it's Chicago, Asheville, or wherever.
Didn't I see in Illinois that murder, if you are high or drunk, is not now becoming a non-arrestable offense?
What?
I don't know.
Wow.
No, it's it's an instant bail, I should say, is what it is. Is they will you'll be arrested, but you'll be out before lunchtime. Again, this is something I'm pulling out of memory, which is not the most reliable. So,
well, okay, Paul. Then that says if you want to protect your family, you can't depend on the police in Chicago. You will have to do it yourself.
Yes.
Please go get your carry permit. The sad news is you may need it.
Well, and we know somebody that can help you do that in the Chicago area.
Amen.
You just give Gary a holler, and I know he'll get you set up. I believe Gary's still doing that, isn't he?
Last I heard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, absolutely. Get a comment up here real quick. Dana says the people of Chicago probably think all cities are that way.
Isn't that interesting how we were told that the people who lived in our big cities were so cosmopolitan and had such a broad perspective? Then why do you put up with that stuff?
Yeah.
I was just reading about a city. I was trying to figure out where it was, place where they said there would no longer be cash bail for second-degree murder. It's Illinois. Your own recognizance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not homicide, not manslaughter, second-degree murder.
Murder.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, it is happening. Facebook is not sending comments through to my software, so I cannot get this one on the screen. But looking over at Facebook, Tom Walls did make the comment. By the way, Tom Walls is my every other Friday guy on the Bullet. He's the one that talks about training. And Tom Walls wants to say to you, John, congratulations on your retirement and great timing.
Great timing is right.
So, what's up next for news, Rob?
Oh, now you ask me.
Yeah.
A concealed carrier stopped mass murder in Detroit. The murderer was a young man who randomly shot 3 people on the streets of Detroit. I'm sorry, Freudian slip. The murderer fled when an armed bystander saw him shoot a 4th person, and the bystander responded with his own firearm and his own gunfire. Quote, "The attacker scattered like a jackrabbit," close quote. So it took many hours early Sunday morning. About 3 people were killed. The defender was at his home and he saw his neighbor and his neighbor's dog shot by the attacker. The attacker then approached closer and was going to continue to shoot and perhaps kill his neighbor and his dog. That's when the defender ran outside. Fortunately, the murderer ran home, where he was arrested a few hours later. I want to ask about mass murder and get your opinion, John and Paul, and also the opinion from our commenters. You and I on this show think that the news media shouldn't mention the name of the attacker. Does that change when the murderer can now live stream their own atrocities? It's not like we're going to keep them anonymous. And we need to somehow label the event. People will. And if we don't, that leaves the politicians free to blame the gun.
I'm going to say no, it doesn't change. And I'm going to use my own experience. This past Christmas, my beautiful wife, Susan, bought me an AR. And I was really proud of it, and I picked it up and I showed it while we were live on the air. Within 30 seconds, we were pulled down. If they have the technology to do that, they can pull down a live stream video of somebody actively murdering. And if they don't, it's bad on you, YouTube. It's bad on you, Facebook, if they don't pull it down.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Paul that you don't mention their name. And if I remember correctly, the mass murderer from Buffalo was planning to, if he had not already started to try to live stream it on Facebook. I know, not in the U.S., but down in New Zealand, the guy who shot up the mosque and killed 50 people, he was trying to live stream it and semi-succeeded. We know we're being watched every time we turn around on social media.
Yeah.
That's the way it seems.
Okay, I
was going to say they should turn it off as soon as they can. Rob, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Let me play the devil's advocate. The reason our show was pulled down is that we probably have a minder who, I'm going to guess, Bloomberg pays to mind our show, and if we so much as burp and hold up a cardboard cutout of a firearm, the show's going to come down. Those live streams don't have Bloomberg's minders. John, do you think that software is automated? I don't think that's true yet.
I have no idea. And this is going to sound really cynical, but I think Bloomberg minders would have probably let it go so that they can have something to say, this is why we need gun control.
Yep, 100%. It's 100% a political decision. Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If not, try to turn up the volume. Let's be honest. Facebook turns down the volume on our broadcasts. That's why you'll often hear me, and I'm going to do it right now. Please, if you're watching, share the broadcast. Doesn't matter if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, OpsLens, anywhere else. Share the broadcast, because the big social media companies absolutely throttle us down.
Right. So we won't appear in your feed.
Yeah. I would imagine that if they're gonna, at least temporarily throttle up so that a major news network catches it, so that the CNN can then say, "Oh, this is so bad," and this is and get to a large number of people who are in the center. Whatever. Let me get this comment up.
You want me to take the next story?
Let me get this comment up here real quick. Dana wants to, didn't the Memphis shooter also live stream? I suppose it's possible.
I think he did.
So, Yeah, John, go ahead. Let's get to the next one.
And this is a different murderer in Memphis. A repeat felon murdered a kindergarten teacher who was out on her morning run in Memphis. Democrats are eager to blame the gun, but let's ask this first. Do you think plea bargaining, attempted murder to aggravated assault was a good idea? Why did this person get out after serving less than 1/3 of his sentence? Given the multiple failures of the government's criminal justice system, do you really think passing new gun laws is the answer? We already have 23,000 firearms regulations in place today. Why do you think criminals will obey the next regulation?
Amen. Good questions.
They won't. They won't.
They won't.
And I've asked this. Years ago. I asked this question, and that number, that 23,000, has been out for a long time. I would imagine by now there's more than that number of gun laws out there, but you still see everywhere in the country it is illegal for a violent felon to have a firearm in their possession, and it happens every day. So,
guys, when I was debating gun control, the group out of San Francisco, I've forgotten their name now. I said, your gun control laws don't work. And he said, but they might. And I say, well, they do work in a perverse sense. They work at disarming the innocent people. From my perspective, that's why gun control never seems to reduce the number of victims. John? Paul, do you have a better answer than that?
I don't. And what I was going to say, with 24,000 or however many gun laws and regulations we have now, I kind of like what Tom Gresham has been saying over the years. A politician will come on and say, I am pro-gun, I am pro-Second Amendment. And his first question to that politician is, please tell me the first 3 laws that you will get rid of once you're elected.
I like that.
And then they start stuttering.
I like that as well, very, very much. I want to skip down a little bit in the show notes here. Speaking of politicians, I want to talk about a Los Angeles politician. There is a 5-term Democratic congresswoman named Karen Bass, and by the way, she's got a perfect first name, who's running for the mayor of Los Angeles. And on Saturday, she released a statement saying that, and I'm going totally off script here, guys, so correct me if I go wrong. On Saturday, she released a statement saying her home had been broken into. Did they get any electronics? Nope. Did they get any cash? No. Did they get any jewelry? No. Did they get anything? They got 2 properly secured handguns. That's what they got in this robbery.
Properly.
Yes. This is the same woman who's proposed legislation stating that if you own a gun and someone steals your gun, that you, the proper gun owner, are responsible for the damage caused by that firearm after the criminal steals it. Karen Bass, this is directly to you, young lady. I expect you right now to sell everything you own, everything, because somebody who you gave that gun to, let's be honest, is going to commit a crime with it, and I expect you to pay for that crime. I'm off my soapbox. Go ahead, guys.
California released the name, address, and the type of firearms that were owned by California gun owners. The state of California gave the address where criminals could go to break in and get guns. Oops, I wonder if that's why she was targeted. Or do you think this is just a setup that she wants to say, see, no one should have guns because I wasn't safe? By the way, I'm sure she continues to have her armed personal security protective detail. John?
You know, guns are better than cash to criminals.
Yes.
Those guns will probably change hands. I've been told by a deputy when I had some stolen guns returned, he said guns can change hands up to 12 or more times within the first 24 hours. The question I would ask, when you're buying drugs, okay, you pass it on, you pass it on, you pass it on. And my question for Karen Bass is, was that a 9mm, which your president said, well, a 9mm, it will blow the lung out. Don't know.
I guess I have to make a correction here. California released the names and addresses of gun owners who registered their firearms.
Yes.
Those that didn't still don't.
Yeah, they didn't get the drug dealer that hangs out at 5th and Vine. They didn't register their handguns, so let me get Mike White's comment up here real quick. As bad as you hear that the city I live in is Compton, California, I just looked it up. There's been 18 murders so far this year.
Mark, that's a wonderfully low number. Congratulations.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think we need to not just in guns, but everywhere. What I would like to see us hold politicians to is you first. If you're going to propose a law, I want you to follow that law first for a year or two, and then we'll see if the rest of us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you think that corporate America should pay a 35% income tax, okay, Mr. Politician, you pay that 35% income tax for a couple years, then we'll talk about it. If you think we need to be disarmed, how about you give up your security detail and all your personal firearms for a couple years, then we'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where should we go next, guys?
Oh, definitely the next story. Can I take it, the Visa MasterCard one?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Visa, MasterCard, and American Express said that they will now tag sales in gun shops so it's easier to trace firearms owners. The tracking code does not record what was bought, but only where you bought it. It will now track your purchase of a fishing rod or wool socks if you bought them at, quote, a gun shop. Not in the story, but from my memory, it was being pushed by Los Angeles, New York City, and a bank called Amalgamated Bank, which was originally started by the unions, and they pushed the ISO to approve the new code.
If you go to a coffee shop, it'll tell you and use your credit card, the bank will tell you that you went to a coffee shop. It never says you bought coffee. You could have bought hot chocolate, you could have bought food, you could have bought a necklace or a gift card that they have over in some kiosk. It just shows you where you bought. And the obvious solution is to walk into your gun shop with cash.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And they're saying that they want to look at large transactions. Okay. Have either of you ever looked at the price of a double rifle?
Mm-hmm. Oof. At a gun show here not that long ago. Side by sides, especially the nicer ones. Oh goodness, I seen some that go for nearly my annual salary.
Yes, absolutely, or more. I mean, a bottom end, still very nice. A Heim 88B, $13,000. Well, that's a significant amount of money and would normally trigger an investigation. How many drive-by shootings, how many murders have
outside of Hollywood?
Outside of Hollywood, ever been committed with a double rifle? I don't know. None.
Just like a Barrett, right.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, and here's one thing I want to bring up too is if I were to go, I buy a lot of my ammunition online. If I were to order, let's say if I order 5,000 rounds, which is not all that uncommon, I order 5,000 rounds of 223. And then I go over and I really like that FN, that new FN in 223. And I want to order that a few days later. How much you want to bet by the end of the week I'm met by somebody from the, ATF saying, hey, we need to talk.
Bring a warrant and you can talk to my lawyer.
Yeah.
It's right up there with that guy that was doing diesel engine YouTube videos, and he ordered oil filters from China just to see how they work. He got visited by ATF like, are you building a suppressor? He's like, what are you talking about? I do diesel stuff. And he brings them in his garage and shows them all the engines and all the... Oh, never mind.
We should have discussed this beforehand, guys. We got a couple stories left, and we're over time. Are we just going to power through and do the rest of these stories and then go on to DGUs, or do you want to do another news segment?
No, we can power.
Either way.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll knock these out. I'll take this next one. Numbers for National Instant Background Checks, or the NICS system, and approximate gun sales are in for August of 2022. The month is the third highest on record for both NICS and gun sales. This has been a trend in 2022. NICS checks are reported as 2.45 million, while gun sales approximately 1.24 million. This is 96% of what gun sales were in August of 2021, and I want to say it's the 36th month in a row that they're over 1 million per month. Those are serious. I can't even pull out that old meme. Those are rookie numbers. Those are serious numbers.
Yeah. And you know what really bothers the anti-gunners, the gun prohibitionist industry? That so many of those sales are to women and to non-whites.
Oh, yeah.
Minorities. And that scares them, because if they start voting Second Amendment, you know what party will be out of office.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good old Stacey Abrams down in Georgia doesn't stand a prayer if new gun owners actually go to the polls in November.
And if their vote counts.
And
there is that. Counts. There is that.
And then the good old Reverend Raphael Warnock either.
Right. Do we want to make fun of New York one more time before we close out the news?
Yes, please.
It's not an understatement. New York lawmakers had a knee-jerk reaction after the U.S. Supreme Court said there was a right to carry concealed in public. The state quickly passed laws outlawing carry in parks and museums. And there are no exceptions. That outlawed the period reenactments in many museums, in forts, and in state parks, as well as the reenactors who gather for sport and entertainment on private property. Now, doesn't that make you feel safer, since those dangerous reenactors and living history actors were such a source of crime in New York State? Yeah, no, me either. John?
Well, I mean, I've been to Fort Ticonderoga on Lake Champlain, and as I remember it, there were a lot of reenactors going on. And, you know, it was one of the early battles of the Revolutionary War. It was a big thing for Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys to cross the Lake Champlain, invade the fort, and take the cannon to use for the siege of Boston. Yes.
Yep.
And he also didn't like New Yorkers anyway, so that's even better.
All right. Let me get a couple of comments in here real quick. Dana again says, we will see a huge spike in cash sales. I believe you will.
Yes, sir.
It's nothing for me to go get. I mean, if I want to buy a firearm, I can pretty well guarantee you I can go to an ATM and get any handgun I want by going to an ATM and walking down to my gun store. But the only thing it's going to curtail is, look, I do enjoy from time to time going online, seeing a gun I know my local gun shop has been having a problem getting, and I'll order it from that place online, have it shipped to my FFL. And now knowing that the banks are going to be able to look at, a gun store sale, and add that to, whatever. I really don't want to see a couple of ATF agents in full riot gear out front of my door, along with some poor deputy sheriff that has to be tagged along, brought along with him. I don't want to see that.
Paul, I'm already on a list.
Oh, yeah.
So are all of us. So are our listeners. Yeah, I want to see the ATF chase me, because I will walk out with cell phone in hand going, tell me why you're here. And it'll be on social media in about a minute.
Oh, you know me, it'll be on social media that very instant. And it'll go on a wide dispersion.
You'll hand him a mic and say, I think that was a little garbled. Could you speak up?
Yes. Another comment up here real quick. George over on the Facebook side says, Biden is a darn good gun salesman. I would venture to say Biden might be a better gun salesman than Obama. Because Obama at least tried to hide being a gun grabber. Biden is going right out and saying, look, the 9mm is a lung blower outer. And nobody needs that dangerous AR-15. So, yeah.
And nothing moves as fast as a 223.
Oh, 5 times as fast as any other. Yeah. And I was seeing today, Snopes won't even walk that back for him. They said that's not technically true, but the AR is a very dangerous weapon, is what their fact check came up with.
Shall we go to DGUs?
Yes, let's do that. We're going to step aside here. We are going to hear, from CNJFO. Folks, we will be right back right after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
And welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations, although they should be. Rob, why don't you go ahead and take our first one?
Well, most DGUs have happy endings. This one is mixed. A 20-year-old suspect let's just call him a murderer, was out to cause death and destruction, he started his rampage at his apartment complex. He, like many other spree shooters, left a manifesto. He wrote that he'd hoped to be a school shooter. He was influenced by Columbine, but he couldn't wait any longer for the start of school. He walked to the Safeway at the Forum Shopping Center. That's where he killed 84-year-old Glenn Bennett. At this point, 7 in the evening, the police started to receive calls. He entered the west entrance of the Safeway and continued to fire shots. He made his way to the produce department, where Douglas Surratt, Jr., a 66-year-old Safeway employee, attempted to disarm the shooter and attack the murderer with a knife. Surratt was an Army veteran. He's being credited with preventing further deaths. Speaking of other veterans, the first victim, Bennett, he was a veteran of the Korea War. Unfortunately, the guy in the produce department was not able to totally disarm the shooter. He lost his life. Police arrived at the store and this time did not remain outside, a la Uvalde, but immediately entered. The shooter, the murderer, seeing no way out, took his own life. It was about 4 minutes after he started shooting. It took 4 minutes from the first calls until officers entered the store. 2 other people were injured, though with non-life-threatening injuries.
On this one, it's unfortunate. Let's point out this is Oregon, where the gun rights are under attack.
There was at least one concealed carrier in the store. I believe it was a female. She did not bring her firearm into play. I'm not sure if she was there with her children.
Well, I had this discussion with Tom Walls, I believe it was last Friday, and when we were talking about an active shooter interdiction class and a scenario that I had run while Tom was there. He was one of the instructors for an active shooter interdiction course that I had taken. And he brought up one lady who, when the scenario went down, she flat retreated. And the reason she gave was, look, I'm there to save me. I'm there to save my children. I'm there to make sure we go home. Anything else, that's not really my top priority, but I had to make sure that my children and I were safe first and foremost, and that required retreating. And that's never a bad option. So I will never get on anybody who has a concealed carry permit, who's in a position like this and decides, look, the best thing for me to do is exit stage left. That's for you. If that's the right decision for you, I will support that 110%.
I mean, your family must come first.
Yes.
I think that Greg Ellifritz had something about that in his weekly roundup a week or so ago, and it's not my people, not my problem. I mean, it sounds cold and callous, but your family must come first.
We talk about, it might be as much as a 150-foot shot if you were trying to stop a murder in a supermarket. Could be, right? We saw one in a mall that was 45 yards, 42 yards, something like that. Look at all the positions of cover. That's hard cover in a lot of supermarkets. Yeah, you could have bad luck and try and get behind a wall of potato chips, but there's a lot of canned goods up there that'll stop a bullet. At which point, you have time. You observe behavior that says, this is not a good guy. And he probably can't see you. If you've practiced shooting from cover, you have a huge advantage. Any attacker can be put under fire and he doesn't know this, from literally dozens of positions of cover at any moment. Every time he focuses to shoot his gun, he is blind to almost all else. Yeah, I want you to defend people. I want you to defend your loved ones. But there are inherent factors that make stopping a murderer possible.
Well, and this person in the produce department, that I'm sure the knife he had was part of his job. I'm sure he was chopping vegetables or whatever. Grabbed the tool he had at the time and decided, I'm not going to let this happen. And nearly succeeded. Yep. What I want to bring up about that is the most important thing to do to stop these things is to fight back. I wish the guy wouldn't have lost his life. But he did.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you go down the row of vegetables, the row of fruit, there's a lot of potential weapons that you can use. A can of tuna, a can of Spam. If enough people are throwing it at the guy, he's distracted. You can either get away, you hit him in the head with a can of peaches.
Let's just face it, that Spam, man, that's nasty stuff. You get hit him with that, it could be fatal.
Especially the fake stuff, the non-spam. But to take Rob's point, we're a little further where he says there's multiple avenues of attack, and he can only focus on one. If you have 2 or 3 people who are concealed carriers, and then everybody else is throwing stuff at the guy, and he doesn't know which way to react, it gives those who are truly armed more time to make their shots.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying you could do it.
You absolutely could. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and take this last one. This is a Channel View. John, I'm sorry, you marked yourself for it. Go ahead and take that Channel View, Texas one.
Sure. Home invasions usually involve more than one person, and more often than not, more than 2. 3 thugs targeted a Channel View home, which is about 17 miles east of downtown Houston. A woman and her 3 children, ages 12 and 17, were inside that home. As the men were forcing their way into the home, one of the 17-year-olds grabbed a shotgun and fired several times. In the end, 2 masked intruders lay dead at the scene, and the third had fled in a dark-colored sedan. As things stand now, the case will be presented to a grand jury after the investigation is complete. The story didn't go on, but I would wager house money that there will be no charges brought.
I believe in Texas. I'll get you. I'm sorry, Rob. I'll get you in just a sec. I believe in Texas, whenever there is a death by firearm, there is a grand jury brought in, no matter what. If they know who shot the person, there is a grand jury brought in. Period. They take it out of the prosecutor's hands as to whether charges are going to be filed. Somewhat. Rob, what do you think, man?
I want you to have a safety plan and practice it with your family, not only for their personal safety, but for their emotional health. Practicing that plan helps your children feel emotionally in control when crazy things are happening. And actually practicing it and going, what did we do? We did the plan. That helps them be emotionally resilient when it happens. John, what do you think?
I think you're absolutely right about both emotional resilience and being, having the safety plan. I happened across a tweet today from Shannon Watts, dear old Shannon, who was dumping on the NRA, who had picked up this story and was praising this young man for protecting his mother, his others, and his 2 other siblings against home intruders. Like, what kind of world is it that we should be praising a young man for killing two thugs? A rational world?
A pretty good one, actually. By the way, we need to point out when someone says, "Oh, it's only a home invasion," 2/3 of rapes begin with a home invasion. So tell me, just how long would you like me to wait?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's do this. We're going to step aside to our final break. We're going to come back. We're going to let you know what we've been involved in media, and we'll get to that. And we'll close the show down. We'll get to that right after we hear from Concealment Solution. No. We'll hear from somebody. Hang on.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
And welcome back to this final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Let me go over to show notes and take a look here. Rob, looks like you eliminated yourself, so I'm guessing with the travels you weren't putting much up over on Slowfax.
I reposted some nice articles, but nothing original.
All right, then, John, let's talk about your blog. Anything new go up, but over to Only Guns and Money?
Yeah. You know, the anti-gunners were making a big deal about a local youth football league who was raffling off an FN-15 patrol rifle to raise money. It has backfired on them. The East Henderson Youth Football and Cheer League has now received donations from virtually every state in the country. If you want to help, I have a link in my blog. Both Fox News and Grassroots North Carolina helped bring the attention to the story. What their goal was to raise money to take care of those kids who could not afford the fees, and they have to charge fees for equipment, for referees, etc. They've raised a ton of money. And on the next one, I really wish Amanda could have joined us tonight, as I would have liked to have heard her comments on this. Justice Jennifer Brunner of the Ohio Supreme Court and a candidate, Democrat, for the Chief Justice position objected in a case which asked for briefs responding to the Bruen decision. Her rationale was that women and non-white people could not have voted in early America, and we don't know their positions on gun control. Actually, we do. From Harriet Tubman to Frederick Douglass to Ida B. Wells, they were all in favor of non-whites or blacks being armed so as to preserve their civil rights. Wells said that every black family should have a Winchester repeating rifle as a way to stop lynchings. As I said in my story, she obviously had never heard. She was like that Sam Cooke song, "A Wonderful Life." Don't know much about history. That was Justice.
Yes.
That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com. Anything new for you, Paul?
On my end, I'm just going to encourage everybody, please keep tuning in 5 p.m. Central Time for the Bullet, because right now, Rob is going to be my commentator tomorrow. Amanda is going to be in on Wednesday. right now I've got so much going on with planning for GRPC, planning for AMCON. I just don't have a whole lot of time to do other things right now. So please do keep tuning in right where you're catching this right now, 5 p.m. Central Time, and catch the bullet. And thank you for those of you who do. And keep coming back here Monday nights at 6. Next week we do have a guest scheduled. I don't have that right up in front of me, but there will be a guest next week. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for us today. On our way out, I haven't done this recently. I do want to mention that we do have a Facebook group for Polite Society podcast listeners. Just search Facebook if you're a member for Polite Society podcast listeners. And we do control who gets into the group. We want to make sure you're actually a listener to the podcast or a viewer of the podcast before we let you in, so that we don't get a whole lot of trolls in there. And I've never caught a troll in there yet, so it seems to be effective. That does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. For Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until the next time,
Stay safe,
be aware.
and we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, and we're done recording. We're still live on Facebook, YouTube, and OpsLens. I want to bring this up on our way out. Gun websites on the YouTube side, and great point, Pete. Great time to call the Senate and let them know to drop the assault weapons ban at U.S. Capitol switchboard 202-224-3121. And I'll say this: the software carries over my last comment from one every time I open the software, and the only time I use this set is for Polite Society podcast. And I'll go ahead and gun websites. I'll make sure that this comment gets up next week too, and gets in the recording, so it goes out on the podcast twice, basically. So I think that's going to do it for us. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thanks everybody